Bonjour, French 1 students. Here is your teaching video for Lesson 6B, pages 86 and 87 in your textbook. S'il vous plaît, ouvrez vos livres à la page 86. I want to start with just kind of reviewing what we talked about yesterday. And we talked about subject pronouns and our first verb, which is être. Remember, we have our subject pronouns already written here. Je means I. Tu means you. It's the familiar you. Il means he or it. Elle means she or it. Nous means we. Vous means you. That's the formal you and the plural you. Il pluriel means they, and elle pluriel means they. Remember, this column, these are the singular subject pronouns. These are the plural subject pronouns. So, and again, this is called a conjugation chart. This is so that you're making sure that you're saying I am and not I are when you conjugate this verb. So, être means to be. It's an irregular verb, which means it's one you have to memorize. The forms of être are je suis, tu es, il, elle, est, nous sommes, vous êtes, and il and elle pluriel sont. S'il vous plaît, répétez être, je suis, tu es, il est, nous sommes, vous êtes, ils sont. And again, remember this row, this is our first person row, second person row, and third person row. So that's just kind of a review of what we talked about yesterday. Today we're talking about 3 ways to ask yes or no questions. When we say a yes or no question, what we mean is that you could just answer these questions with simply a yes or a no. However, you're in French class and I want you to learn how to answer questions in a complete sentence. So although you could answer these with just a yes or a no, I will ask you to answer questions in a complete sentence. When we start to look at our examples here, we're going to use this sentence as our example. Tu es en classe. You are in class. And right now this is a sentence. Again, this is using the familiar you as our subject. So we're talking to one person our own age or younger. A, right, that's the form of the verb of être that matches to. So our first way to ask yes or no questions is to put est-ce que at the beginning. Now, this is actually the best way to ask questions. And the reason it's the best way is because when you hear est-ce que, you know that it's a question. So this is definitely the best way to ask questions, and this is the way that I would prefer that you ask questions. And you're going to put est-ce que at the beginning. So if we look at that example that we had, the tu es en classe, what that means is we would put est-ce que in front of the tu es. So our question would be est-ce que tu es en classe. S'il vous plaît, répétez, est-ce que tu es en classe? So again, what's nice about this is when we hear the est-ce que, we automatically know that it is a question. The other thing that we need to know about this is that que becomes Q-U apostrophe before a vowel or a silent H. So if we were asking if Anne is in Paris, it'd be QU apostrophe because Anne's name starts with a vowel. So that's going to happen with people's names that start with vowels or silent H. Also remember, right back here, il and L both start with a vowel. So if we have a question with il or L, it'd be esquil or escal. And same thing here with il and L pluriel. Esquil, escal. So it happens with names, but it also happens with those couple subject pronouns. All right, so although ESCA is our best way to ask the question, I want to remind you that you can also do it the way you had been doing it in units 1 and 2. So you put a question mark at the end and you raise your voice. This is actually how you had been asking questions. For example, when you asked, "Are you hungry?" you said, "Tu as faim?" If you asked if you were thirsty, it was "Tu as soif?" You put a question mark at the end. So to take that same question, the "tu es en classe," and to put it this way, it would be "Tu es en classe?" with a question mark, and we would raise our voice. So it would be "Tu es en classe?" Now the problem with that is if I don't raise my voice, I can't tell whether this is a question or a statement. So that's why ESCA really is our best way, okay? Is because as soon as we hear that ESCA, we know that it's a question. With this way, okay, with our raising our voice at the end and just putting the question mark, if we're just hearing it and we don't hear, if that person doesn't do a good job of raising their voice, then we wouldn't know it was a question. So the second question example that I had put up there would just be "On est à Paris?" with a question mark. So "On est à Paris?" So again, that's kind of the simple way that you had been asking questions. Okay, this is the way you've been doing it in units 1 and 2. Okay, but again, at this point, I want you to kind of really stop asking questions this way and use ESCA instead. Our third way is that you can put n'est-ce pas at the end of your sentence. Now, this is really the kind of equivalent. This is like saying "right" or "don't you." This is more used for starting to say something and realizing as you're saying it that perhaps you're wrong and you want to make this a question instead of a statement. Okay, again, this isn't really the best way to ask questions, but if we wanted to take the "tu es en classe" one and look at that example, it would be "tu es en classe, n'est-ce pas?" So this is saying like you're in class, right? Or you're in class, aren't you? Okay, so again, this is an okay way to ask questions, but again, our best way to ask questions is going to use to use that ESCA at the beginning, because when we hear that ESCA, we automatically know that it's a question. So taking a look at this in your textbook, the way it's presented there, les questions à réponse affirmative ou négative. The sentences on the left are statements. The sentences on the right are questions. These questions are called yes-no questions because they can be answered by yes or no. Note how the French questions begin with est-ce que. So, Stephanie est ici? Est-ce que Stephanie est ici? Tu es français? Est-ce que tu es français? Paul et Marc sont au café. Est-ce qu'ils sont au café? Tu veux jouer au foot? Est-ce que tu veux jouer au foot? Yes or no questions can be formed according to the pattern est-ce que with the statement, est-ce que Pierre est ici? Est-ce que with a vowel sound, est-ce qu'il est en ville? Right? So remember, this isn't just a vowel sound, but this is also a silent H. In French, a silent H is a vowel sound. So, est-ce que Pierre est ici? That's asking, is Pierre here? Est-ce qu'il est en ville? Is he in town? So again, really, this is our best way to ask questions. And again, it's our best way because as soon as we hear est-ce que, we know that it's a question. In yes-no questions, the voice goes up at the end of the sentence. Est-ce que Paul et Florence sont au café? In casual conversations, yes or no questions can be formed without est-ce que, simply by letting your voice rise at the end of the sentence. That was our second way that we talked about, okay? Tu es français? Cécile est en ville? But again, if you forget to raise your voice, you don't know that this is a question. So again, this is our best way. And again, this is the way that you should be asking questions, is with this est-ce que at the beginning. Observation. When you expect someone to agree with you, another way to form a yes or no question is to add the tag n'est-ce pas at the end of the sentence. Tu es américain, n'est-ce pas? Tu aimes parler français, n'est-ce pas? Vous êtes d'accord, n'est-ce pas? So again, this really is, you're expecting someone to agree with you. Okay, this was our kind of third way we talked about. This is like saying right or don't you or aren't you. Again, this is also a way that you could ask a question that as you start to say your statement, you realize, shoot, this needs to be a question. I'm not so sure about this. And you can add n'est-ce pas at the end. So let's take a look at exercise 5, nationalité. You are attending an international music camp. Ask about other people's nationalities. So this really is sort of a two-part exercise. First off, you're going to make these all into questions. So you're always going to add est-ce que at the beginning. Okay? But in this backslash spot, okay, I need to add a verb. Right? And this time we added a because our subject is Mark. So we're going to use the verb être every time. Okay? So you're going to add your form of être there in the backslash. So again, remember it's, s'il vous plaît, répétez, je suis, tu es, il or elle est, nous sommes, vous êtes, and il and elle sont. Layla, stop. Sorry about that. Layla, no. So, again, remember, it doesn't have to be il or elle. This can be one boy's name or one girl's names. And here it doesn't have to be il or elle pluriel. It could be two or more people's names. Okay. So, again, I want this to be one that you say out loud. So again, I'm going to give you a moment to kind of ask the question. And then you will hear me so that you can see whether you did it correctly. So, numéro 1. Est-ce que Jim est américain? 2. Est-ce que Luisa est mexicain? Numéro 3. Est-ce que Paul et Philippe sont français? Numéro 4. Est-ce que tu es canadien? Numéro 5. Est-ce que vous êtes anglais? Numéro 6. Est-ce qu'Anne est française? That would be the QU apostrophe because Anne's name starts with a vowel. Et numéro 7. Est-ce qu'Hélène et Carol sont américaines? Again, it would be QU apostrophe Ellen's name because Ellen's name starts with a vowel. All right, vocabulaire, expression pour la conversation. S'il vous plaît, répétez oui, oui, mais oui, mais oui, bien sûr, peut-être, peut-être, non, non, mais non, mais non. All right, your homework is exercise 5. Again, we did this one out loud. Remember kind of two things happening here, right? Here, I have to add my correct form of the verb être that matches the subject. And then again, out here, I'm adding the est every time. Be careful with the est. Remember, it's going to become QU apostrophe before a vowel or a silent H. Oops. So you're going to type up those questions. So number 1 would be, est-ce que Jim est américain? Okay, and typing up those questions. Au revoir, à demain.